Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The spa and spa life, the SPA, is for seek power always. It's that power within you to do your bigger work in the world. I am so thrilled to introduce today's guest, which is Erin Loman Jeck. She is the CEO of Transformational Speakers Agency, the executive speaking coach, and a TEDx speaking coach, and the creator of the Speakers Summit. I should say the Speaker Success Summit, because that's an important word to keep in there. The highly sought after business coach transitioned her own speaking agency, and she is the leading authority on assisting thriving, purpose-driven entrepreneurs on how to monetize their message, make an impact, influence change, and inspire action in others. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This is so great. I love because your approach is unique and powerful, and you use the psychology of connection. I'd love for you to share how you do that and what that looks like.
So I went to school to be a therapist, and I never imagined in all the years that I would be a speaking coach or a business coach. But while I was in school, I was really studying what motivated people, what inspired them, what got them to do things differently, what actually provided transformation. So when I realized I wasn't made to be a therapist, I started out having a business coaching practice. And what I noticed is when I would speak, so many people would come up to me and like, how do you do what you do? And it took me a while to go, I don't know. How do I do what I do? So I kind of had to reverse engineer it and figure out what it was I was doing, why I was doing it, and how the audience was reacting. So what I came down to was the 4 parts of compelling communication. The first part is 50% of everything your audience, whether it's an audience online, whether it's an audience of one or an audience of many, they take in your nonverbal communication. So everything in your facial expressions, your hand gestures, how you carried yourself into the room, how you're holding yourself in the room, all of those things, because they're looking to see if you're in alignment with your message. They're also saying, is this person credible and should I pay attention? And so there's a lot of things that we do with our body that either connects us or disconnects us. So the opposite can be true about one of the things that happens is we all get a little anxiety before we go on stage. It's normal for all of us, because even I, speaking for all these years, still have those same chemical reactions in my body. But what happens is a lot of times we try to protect the main part of our body because we're insecure. So it's a self-soothing technique. And what we don't realize it is actually discredits you. It makes you look less confident. And so these things can either really help you deeply connect or disconnect you. And the audience is like, she's not someone I want to listen to. They pull open their phones and start scrolling. So that's number one most important. If you can nail 50% body language, facial expressions, all of those things, you will at least have half the room. Now, it's just so fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's so important, that whole building trust and rapport, right? And they're judging you before you even open up your mouth. So, it's interesting. So how is it when you are, because people have their stories, they have what they're talking about and what they're doing. How is it that they can actually have them engage and be able to listen to the message? I mean, we're asking them to do a lot as we're speaking and connecting. Even people who come here on the show, they may be, punching dials and do I stay? Is this something engaging? Does this bring more value to our life? What are some of those things that as a speaker, we can do that really keeps people, still connected to us and engaged?
Yeah, one of the first things, so just going back into nonverbal for a second, is your eyebrows. Now, you're going to be now obsessed with watching my eyebrows the rest of this interview. I'm sure all your listeners will be too. So one of the things is when we are really interested or curious about something, we lift our eyebrows. Some hot person walks by, we lift our eyebrows. So if you can lift your eyebrows in a conversation, you're showing interest in the other person. And that's even if you're not having a two-way conversation, because when you're speaking, there's not a lot of dialogue. But if you do it, people feel you. So what I have to do is like really think about having my eyebrows relaxed.
Okay.
So this is my normal eyebrows. And if I was just to talk to you, I start talking like a robot when I do this. I don't know why.
Oh, wow.
But you can tell I don't feel as compelling, as interesting as I do when I start to move my eyebrows. Now, mine are half cocked all the time. That's why I have to like relax them. Because the more you have them open, like right here, this is half cocked.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I really want to use them, right? So the funny thing is my 3.5-year-old daughter does eyebrows. She's like, all the time. She sees me move mine. So she's learning.
That's so funny. I think I do that all the time. You know, because I'm always leaning in and like, what's happening? And, you know, it's like,
It's something so easy for you, even on a one-way conversation, to do that the other person feels you genuinely care about them, you like them, you're showing interest in them. So even if that's the only thing you practice for a while is practicing your eyebrows.
Right. Well, I know some of our listeners are actually just listening, depending on what platform they are on. So they'll have to go over to YouTube and actually watch how we're doing this, where we're like, how we're raising our eyebrows. And it's just kind of fun as part of that connection. So that might be a reason to go check us out there.
For sure. So the second piece that people don't realize in the 4 parts of compelling communication is not the vocal tonality. Now, if you think about this, as humans, we're really monotone and boring. 3 tones. We have our normal talking voice, which you hear now.
Right.
And then a puppy walks in. You're like, oh my God, look, it's a puppy. And you go really high and you get all excited. And then when you want the puppy to sit, right? We go to the deep voice.
Right.
That's about it, though. We don't use volume, pace, tone, pitch. We don't use all those things on purpose. Now, if you think about this, tonality being 30%, if you could go in your car right now, turn on the radio, you could probably rock out and sing a whole bunch of lyrics to so many songs, right?
Yes.
But you might not remember what you ate for breakfast. Why is that? It's because we actually, when you use melody, you unlock the episodic part of someone's brain. So you become memorable. And who doesn't want to become the most memorable speaker?
Yes.
The time they don't even know what I said because of how I said it. They're just moved by it. And they're like, oh my gosh. I was like, well, what was your favorite part? And they go, I don't remember. But they were like, but you were so captivating and amazing. You took me on this journey. And so if you can use those things in your tonality, you really become memorable, credible. And then if you do the third piece, which is storytelling, like you said, telling your story. And if you do it in a compelling way where really it gets the audience into their story, now this is where the juicy stuff comes. Because we already have 80% over here, right? Yes. So if 13% is storytelling, most people tell their story, and we've all heard speakers do this. I got up for breakfast. I painted the house. I walked the dog. It sounds like a task list of their daily life. When you tell a story that involves the audience, you tell it from the perspective of the 3 pieces that I say are most important because they connect all of us humans. Doesn't matter what religion, where you live, what color, what race, what sex, what age, doesn't matter. The thing is that we all have feelings, we all have thoughts, and we all have physical things that happen to us in our bodies. The human connection. So if you can talk about your story from the place of, instead of saying this, I was so angry, my fist balled up, I was so just enraged, right? It connects, like you're okay, yeah, I've been there. But if you say it like this, I was so angry. You know the kind of anger where your fist ball up, your chest gets tight, and that vein starts popping in your forehead? I was there. Now, all of a sudden your audience is like, oh, I was there last week. My husband, he didn't do the dishes. I don't know, whatever.
So it's visceral in the body.
Yes. So we all have had that physical response. So now, even if you had never had this story, let's say the story was somebody killed my dog, right? If you haven't had that story, you can't relate to the story. But if I tell you the feelings and the thoughts and the things I was experiencing,
right,
you will find a place in your stories that has that connection.
Mm.
And the best part, this is why I say it gets juicy. When you tell your story, you release your own oxytocin. But when the audience is in their story, they release oxytocin. And we know oxytocin is the bonding chemical that we all have.
Right.
So if you really want people to be deeply connected with you, that is the key. Those three things. The last one is words. 7%. Nobody cares. Nobody really cares what you said. It's how you say it and what you got them to experience and feel in that time with you. So stop worrying about, oh, I got to write this speech. No, you need to write it if you want to practice tonality and physicality and all those things. But truly, they don't really care. And if you bumble your words or you forget a word, nobody knows. You're the only one that knows. So stop focusing there. Focus on all the others.
Right. This is such a relief for the listeners, because people, even if you're not a professional speaker, I mean, really we all are, because how we really communicate with anyone, no matter what we're doing, it shows that credibility. It's who we're showing up, in business, even as a parent. It's like whatever you're doing, how you are communicating with people is just a huge, huge thing. And, when there's, disagreements or things, what happens? It's a breakdown of that communication. It's not getting across, your message and how you want to do it and making sure that people hear it in the way it is. And so I love that you focus on, not just the words. I mean, that's usually where people start, is on the words, but really looking about your impact and the experience and how you're really showing up for people. And so that they get to have an experience so that they feel better. Right? So when they feel better, it's like they are going to make that connection and they are going to want to connect with you and have that happen. So I love that you've broken it down that way, because I think sometimes we get so caught up in the structure of what those things are. And, there's a place for that, obviously, in creating your story and knowing what that is, but how you have people feel when you're moving through that is really, really powerful. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, it's movies, it's books, it's stories. Like, we love watching the underdog, right? And so here's a tip. If you don't know what story to tell of yours, first, think about all of your favorite movies. Now, this sounds really kind of crazy, but I think about my favorite movies is G.I. Jane, let's see, A Field of Dreams, Rudy, and Star Wars. So all of those stories, the underdog.
Yep.
The underdog always winning, the persistence, the resilience, overcoming obstacles and overcoming these big things.
Yep.
I just love those things. And I think about it, that's the theme of my life. Mm-hmm. And so if you start looking at why you're attracted to those things, then you go into your life and you go, okay, where are my stories? Where are my underdog stories? My dad died when I was 10. My mom got malignant melanoma at 15, when I was 15, and was sentenced to a year to live. She overcame that. But it's, all of these stories, the time I got cut from volleyball, the time I got cut from softball, whatever. Yeah. But those things are what will impact your audience. Right. Nobody really wants to hear, oh, it was so amazing. I got a yacht. Oh, I got a plane. Oh, it's great. Yeah. But they got to know where you came from. They
right. So how did you get there?
Yes, that's what's going to connect them, because most people that are in the room or talking to you are a few steps behind you. Right. So you're giving them the route to the top of the mountain. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
I love that, and along those lines, when we look at what is some of this, the secrets, right? What is it that you do? And I know for you, because you consciously create everything you do. I'd like you to speak a little bit into how you just go for things. What is that like for you? Because I mean, for so many people, it's they might question themselves. They may have some self-doubt. They may have something happening, but your default is that you go for it. And how did you get there to that place? Has that just been who you are? Has that been a journey? What brought you there?
Yeah, I really think it is that, having my dad die so young, realizing first, life is short. You don't got a lot of it. So make sure you are living it all out. Second would be probably because my mom beat an incurable cancer. So there are no such thing as obstacles to me. There might be detours, different routes to the answer, but really, truly, it is there's nothing you can't do. Yeah. So why would we stop ourselves? And I really, truly, it's not always because I'm so confident. People think I'm so bold, you take so many risks, you do all these things, but it's just because it's now a part of who I am.
Right.
I don't know how to not go for something I want.
Mm-hmm.
I just came up with a coach that I'm hiring, and it's $20,000 for 2 days. And I was like, okay, let's figure this out. And so I take a step, at least just one, and the universe lines up. And I take another one, the universe lines up. And I just keep taking steps. And so for me, it feels second nature. To others, it feels like this big, risky jump off the cliff kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you just realize that it's just one more step and take another step and watch what lines up for you, because truly it is that easy when we don't let all this in our head get in our way.
Right, right. It's funny. I was thinking about that as well. I think that I know I've actually broken that open myself because, as a police officer, right, there's risk every day. Every call, every 911, all the things that happen with that. My idea of risk is like, I didn't get shot today, right? So, it's like you really look at the perspective, and when you really look at what's happening, there's so much you can just shift and change and be present. I love that you look at just that one step. I think that is so important to do that and not look at because if you look at the whole thing, it can feel really overwhelming. But when you just break it down into what's the next powerful step that I can do, and what does that part look like? And, I know one of your secrets too is you actually borrow confidence from your future self. How do you go about that?
Yeah. So I was doing this boot camp where it's called Quantum Creators Boot Camp, which had us think about our future self as if they've already completed all the things that you wanted. I call her ELJ. She's my alter ego. So ELJ, runs a $40 million company. She's a New York Times bestselling author. She's been on big stages, been on Oprah under the oak trees, right? She's gotten it all done already. Yeah. And so when I was faced with, okay, I asked a big person, a big name to be on his stage, because I said there's not enough females on the stage. And he was like, okay, tell me. And I was like, well, you had more women in your audience, more women on the stage that were wanting to do speaking, and still you had no female judges up there to help women understand what it's like to be powerful and feminine at the same time. And I said, so I deserve a chair on that stage to be that person for these women, because when I did get on that stage and share my story, they all came to me and asked me that. And he was looking at me and I'm like, so I just need room on that stage for my chair. And I'll never forget, he just was, all right, let's talk about it. Let's do it. And I was like, okay. Because ELJ knows, she's already buddies with these people. She's already at their level. This isn't, a step up for me. This is a step across, right? I get to play in that reality when I borrow that confidence from her.
Right.
And I also borrow that when I think about what to do next. We're talking about those steps. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that next step is. I bring her in, sit her in front of me in my office and go, okay, what would I do next? What should I be focusing on? What's the most important thing? And I get the best advice from myself.
Right. I love that distinction that you are borrowing across, right? It's a continuum this way. It's not like this unreachable down, up there, hope I get there someday. It's wait a minute, this is the same continuum that I get to borrow from, that it's still part of my DNA. And I'm just taking a quick little loan to just really borrow from that. So I love that. That's such a great example, and that you can use that to step into your power. And so with that, I would love to also look at, there are so many times that we give our power away, or that we feel disempowered, and times that we stand in it as well. And I believe we also play on that spectrum of each aspect of that. I know that you have had something recently, disempowering regarding your son and bullying, and it's such a thing that is out there. But when it hits home and it's your own child, and, really share with us about, what parts of that was disempowering and how you turn that around to be an empowering moment for you.
Yeah. Getting that call that morning saying you need to bring your son in the morning, I was like, okay. So I walked him to school, and I had already known that the night before on his way home from school, he told me he had been bullied. He had had 4 boys jump him and physically put their hands on him, and he was scared. And so when I go to the school, I said, no matter what, I have your back. And I just held his hand. He's 10 years old. And we walked in, and all of these, educators are there. And they want to tell me that my son threatened with a gun. Now, we pulled this back. So what my son actually said was, I'm going to go get my dad. He was military police, which is worse than the police. So I'm going to, he wanted to get out of being beat up by 4 boys. You're going to say whatever you need to say.
Yeah.
I mean, especially at 10. So, and being a military police is not any different than being a police officer. It's actually probably less dangerous in some instances. But, this is his little 10-year-old brain.
Sure.
So those kids, somebody that wasn't even those boys that said anything, it was another little girl that overheard it. And so she thought he was bringing a gun. Now, we don't even have guns in our house. I've gone through hunter safety. My husband, obviously, was an instructor, small arms instructor. So, none of this was even, doesn't even faze us. And so the threat made them feel insecure. Now, they couldn't prove the fact, but they just expelled him. And in that moment, I was really mad. I was really mad. The mama bear comes out, right? It's one like those in the movies when you see someone stand up, flip the table. I'm taking the fish with me who's coming.
Right. Not my child.
That was going on in my head. And I also understand, if he did say something worse, and I didn't know, but I knew I'd get to the bottom of it.
Sure.
But in that moment, I wanted him to know I had his back, and I wanted them to know, okay, great, I'm going to do my research and I'll get back to you. And as you do your investigation, I'm going to do mine. And so I remember coming home, and he went up to his room because he was so devastated that he had to miss 2 days of school. I had to take a drive because I needed to calm down. And I didn't want him to see me break down angry. And, a lot of us in anger just start bawling. And that's what I was doing. And I was just so enraged. And it took me a moment. And then I thought, no, not my kid. Because my kid raises money for nonprofits. He's an entrepreneur at 10, and he's donated more than $6,000 to nonprofits as a child.
Yeah.
And he's done service projects around the world. This isn't my kid. And I'm not going to let someone define him that way.
Yeah.
So I got on the phone, started calling everyone I knew that had a power position who could help me in this. And I called lawyers. I called educators. I called the president of Women of Global Change because she and her daughter had seen my son in action in these kind of things. Mm-hmm. And I had everyone write letters. So when we got to go back to the school, I got to show up, and this time I went to show them that he also was nominated by the 425 magazine in Seattle for Citizen of the Year award, the only child to ever be nominated.
Wow.
So, this doesn't sound like the kid that brings a gun to school, right? And so I went in there and I pitched for him with him sitting there. I wanted him to know how I could advocate for him and cheer him on and say all these amazing things for him in his behalf. And then when he left, all the other educators came in. I had 8 of them around me, and I thought, this isn't fair. I mean, I'm a strong woman, and I'm not afraid of 8 educators surrounding me telling me, well, maybe your son's antisocial. Maybe he's autistic. Maybe he's all these labels.
Right.
But I thought about all the other women who would come in here, they're not as educated as I am and not understanding this. And I got a little pissed for them. My little warrior spirit came out because I was like, no. And when the therapist tried to tell me that maybe Dylan is antisocial, I just turned my chair and I was like, I know you don't know me. And I know that most of you have no idea who I am, but I went to school to be a therapist. If my son had that problem, I would already have had him in services. As you can see, as IEP, I've had him in services for speech since he was 2, which services didn't kick in until he was 3. But I have been proactive in helping my son his entire life. So before you want to put a label on my son, why don't you actually meet him and have a conversation with him before you just throw a title on him? And I just turned my chair and I was like, oh, I probably just stepped on some toes. But I also want them to know, you can't just bully one mom sitting in this chair by herself and 8 of you surrounding her, telling her all these things that should be put on her son. And I was like, no, not today. And not this woman. You don't know who I am.
Yeah, right.
So it really shifted because I did feel very disempowered when they were like, we don't care, we're expelling him, and he was the victim. The kids that did this didn't get anything.
Yeah.
And so I could feel really disempowered, and then I decided to really shift it because I needed to advocate for him.
Right.
And I felt like I was advocating for all other moms who have ever sat in that chair being told about their child and not having the voice to express it.
Right, right. And this is so important because, there is, obviously when it's our children, right, that takes even a whole nother level there as well. And to just automatically almost like convict them and be like, you're out without knowing the story, right? Because, with children, I mean, obviously there's a lot of fear with shootings and school shootings in particular, and it triggers a lot of different things, but we also need to do our due diligence. And we also need to see like how these labels, you really chose a path at that time that could have affected your son and how he viewed himself and where he goes. And so if we don't stand in our power, it has that ripple effect for our children, for our community. And so, kudos to you for seeing that broader picture, that even though you were advocating for your son, you're also advocating for people to really stand in their power and to really speak their truth and not to be bullied. It's interesting, all this, the secondary victimization that can happen around these kind of things. And there's something different between having a victim experience and then acting and being a victim, moving through in the world and really getting clear on those type of things. So it's so important to have these conversations and to look, deeply into that. So I love this, right? Because there's so many things that can take us out of our power. And when we can recognize it and get right back on track, the sooner the better, that can really, serve us in such a deep way.
And give yourself space to feel it. If I would have shoved it down, I probably might have went back into that school and flipped the table and be like, I'm out of here. Because I had all the conversations I could have said, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, no, okay. I called her Nurse Ratchet. Nurse Ratchet, get back in the box.
Right.
Thing, like knowing that if you're having those feelings, go give yourself some time to express it, get it out, feel it, and then come back from that place of like, now that I've handled that, I can move forward.
Right. Well, and maybe even dial up, ELJ and ask her like, okay, look what just came down here. So I love that. Oh, so good. Well, one of the things I also love to look at is, environment does affect us, whether it's our school environment, our home, and what we're doing. And one of the things I love asking my guests is to really look at your own environment, right? Because they all have an impact on us. We have a different experience in our kitchen versus our bedroom versus our office. And so what is your favorite room in your home and why?
My favorite room in my house is definitely the couch. And that's because it's so big and we all fit on it. Or even my bed in the morning. We have a ritual that every morning the kids get up. All of us are in the bed together, even the dog. And we spend maybe like 10, 15 minutes just kind of cuddling, kind of waking up together. But it's that bonding. Everyone's snuggled together. And we just know that it's like us against the world in a way. Yeah. And I set my kids off and, I put my little daughter up in front of the mirror today. It's like, I am beautiful. I am smart, and it gives you those moments of just pouring into them because as they go out the door, you don't know what they're going to run into, right? And so if you can set them up in the morning in a way that they feel so safe, so supported, so loved, that, even if they have a big ego, like that's going to be knocked down in the world anyway. So if I can make it at least big enough that when they get to it, it becomes normal sized, right? That really seems to help. And so I think for me, it's just being with my family because it's the number one value. And like I said, I think it goes back to my dad dying and my mommy having cancer.
Yeah.
That the quality time together is so important in making memories. So those are my favorite spots because then we all get to cuddle together and they're big enough for us all to be together.
Oh, that is so fun. I love that. We just recently got a larger sofa in our family room as well. And that way everyone kind of has their space. Everyone can be there together. And, one of my values is definitely, a sense of like belonging and united family and just having everyone together. Like my house is like the place everybody comes and hangs out. And so it's just so important, right? Is to have those connections and to be able to have that. So what a beautiful ritual to come together and to do that. So I love it. I love it. Love it. So Well, I know that that you also have a free gift for our guests here, and I want you to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So many times people, they start speaking for people who aren't speaking or people who want to speak, people who are already speaking. This is perfect because so many times we just give our gifts so freely. And a lot of times I feel like that's kind of disempowering for ourselves. If we just give it freely and we don't ask for anything in return, most of us don't offer anything. We're like, oh, but I don't want to look salesy. I created a program that just quickly goes over a blueprint. And it's like a 30-minute, you'll get a 30-minute training video that just kind of walks you through results on how I exactly did it. But it's really, truly, how do you actually start making money before you fly off somewhere and speak? Or before you drive your car through traffic to a women's networking event to speak? I want you to maximize the amount of rapport you can build and the things you can offer them so that when you show up in the room, that's just like the cherry on top. And so it really is building that before you even show up, and then how to expand it afterwards. Because my favorite quote is, you can't be a lighthouse to the world if you can't keep your own lights on. And that's because we can't sustain the message if we aren't able to provide for ourselves and our families.
Right.
So it's important for people and powerful for you to stand in it, own your worth, own what you're here to do in your gifts. And so I want to be able to give that to more people and really show them how to make that money so that we can actually make a bigger impact in the world as well.
Oh, so that is amazing.
It's a blueprint with a video. You'll learn all the things that I've done to make 10K from any platform anytime I speak.
Wow. I love that. I'm going to grab that for myself. So for our listeners out there, you definitely want to grab that. And, anything that can help us really connect with our audience more, show up better, serve them, right? To be able to have these kind of tools, because, you're right. If we can't take care of our own self and our family, how much work can we do in the world? So it's so important to do that. And then how can our listeners stay in contact with you?
Yeah, just the same place, my free gift. It's erinlomanjeck.com. There's a whole bunch of free resources there. There's, online stuff, courses, giveaways, whatever you want. But that is the easiest way. Plus, I have the Transformational Speakers podcast if you want. Since you like podcasts, you like to listen, you can go there and subscribe and get some more information along the way. But that's really, truly, I just freely give. So if you want to find out a whole bunch of free stuff, just go to my website.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your gifts and your wisdom and just all these great tips here. I so appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, wonderful. So, we'll have in the show notes, we'll have, all the links to be able to stay in contact with Erin, make sure that you guys get her free gifts. I'll also have in the links for my free gift of my liferesetquiz.com. All of these things give us one more tool to really be able to do the work that we're here to do in the world. And, as always, I just love that you guys are taking your time to be here with us. Time is like our most precious resource, and we don't take it lightly. And so appreciate you watching the show and being here, and start thinking about who is it that you think that could benefit from this message, and share it with them and really spread the love with that. And also, what are you going to take away from this? I don't want you just to listen to this and be like, oh, that's nice. Like, what is the thing that you're going to shift? Are you going to start raising your eyebrows? Are you going to start, really looking at how your impact really in your stories affect your audience? And what are some of those shifts and changes? Please put them in the comments and make sure that you tag both Erin and myself. We're happy to answer any questions and just love to see how this experience expands you as well. And, also please, subscribe and share. And, we all lift each other up when we share this message. We're all part of the conversation, and we'd love to hear your comments and be part of that. So with that, thank you so much all for joining. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.